Great. I'll introduce myself. I'm PerryBrown. I'm a psychologist, a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Kentucky. I'm a transplanted Yankee, originally from New York. Came to Kentucky and did my studies at the University of Kentucky. Got my doctorate there. Didn't like what?
The snow.
Didn't like the snow. No, but actually it's pretty good. But anyway, I have a strong interest in problems of overeating and eating disorders and that kind of a thing, and have been working in the field of bariatrics for almost 10 years. My primary work has been screening people to see if they're psychologically prepared to have bariatric surgery, and I've done that all over the state over the last 10 years. I've seen over 6,000 people, so I've learned something from these people, and from people that are seeking bariatric surgery. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've also done a lot of treatment, and I continue to work at a clinic in Lexington where I reside. And so I've done a lot of individual work. And then I also, one of my main loves actually is every Wednesday night for a couple of hours, I'm part of an intensive outpatient program at a specialized clinic in Lexington for people with eating and weight disorders, people that have anorexia, bulimia, as well as compulsive overeaters and people that are obese and have trouble controlling their eating. It's an interesting mix. There is really a lot of commonality, regardless of the specific disorder. It's amazing how common the same issues that these people are dealing with, whether you go one way or the other, whether you are trying to restrict your food or you can't get enough of it. Anyway, some people wonder, well, how can I know anything about this? You know, look at you, you know. Would you believe I had bariatric surgery and I used to weigh 400 pounds more?
No.
You're right, I lied. No, I didn't have bariatric surgery. However, I'm told that when I was a year old, I weighed 31 pounds. I mean, you should see pictures of me. I was rather large. And I come from a family, a long line of eaters. They love to eat. I could easily become very overweight along the way. I've been blessed probably with some good metabolism, plus I'm kind of addicted to exercise, and I do try to pay attention to what I'm eating. I try to practice what I preach to a great extent. Anyway, I don't intend to just talk at you the whole time, so please, at any time, please interrupt me. And I'm also going to be asking for your participation as much as possible. I'd like to hear how you relate to some of the things that I'm going to talk about. I entitled this presentation, Me First. Okay, Me First. Because there's one thing that I've learned from all these people that I've worked with that are overweight or that have eating disorders and so forth. The thing that I've mostly learned is one thing that causes obesity and conditions of being overweight more than anything else that I've observed. And it's pretty simple. It's not taking care of yourself. It's when you put other things and other people ahead of yourself. When you put your work ahead of yourself, when you put other people ahead of yourself, you essentially neglect yourself. That's what it seems to boil down to. So that's the basic theme here tonight, is me first. Hopefully, those will become more than just words, and hopefully you'll put it into action and live a life where you're going to take better care of yourself. Okay. How many hours do you guys work? First of all, how many people currently work outside the home, have a job outside the home? Okay, how many of you work at least 40 hours? Raise your hand. How many of you work at least 50 hours a week in your job? How many work 60 hours or more? Okay, we've got a couple. Maybe. Anyway, we got some people that work maybe 50 hours, right? Okay. All right. Let's talk about responsibilities at home. How many of you have one child? Raise your hand. How many of you have two? Let's go for 3. 4. Or how many have more than 4? Okay. All right. Well,
grandchildren.
Yeah. How many take care of, in addition to children, a parent, a relative, a grandchild, or just some other living person? Raise your hand. in addition to that. What's that?
20 preschoolers.
20 preschoolers you take care of. Is that?
Teacher.
As a teacher? Well, that's on your job. Okay. I was moving into the home now. Okay. How many volunteer at church? Raise your hand. How many volunteer anywhere? Okay. Well, think about it. You know, like if you had a pie and you divided it up and the pie was the time that you spend in your life. Just think about the percentages of that. What percentage do you think is spent in work? What would you say? What? 2/3 of it? 2/3. But you know, what part of the pie are you always doing something, working, doing something for somebody else, or working on a project, or just taking care of things? What percentage? What? 95%. 90% doesn't leave much time for sleep, does it? Yeah. So most of you are pretty busy, right? This is a busy group. I'll tell you one thing. You know that old myth about overweight people being lazy? People talk, there's that bias, that cultural myth. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have found in this population is quite the reverse. If anything, I'm trying to encourage people to be more lazy, to take it easy, not to work so hard. If you want a good working group, this is it. Right here, people that tend not to take care of themselves. They're always there for you. They'll get the job done. And where does this all come from? Where does this all come from? Part of it is like this tremendous work ethic.
And from heredity, from your folks.
From heredity?
From your mom and dad.
That's right. Parents instill that. I don't know about the rest of you. I started working when I was 11 years old. What age do people start working?
Gosh,
8? What'd you say?
live on a farm.
If you live on a farm, you can be very young, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How many of you feel like you had a childhood? Raise your hand. Good. How many of you didn't feel like you had a childhood? You put to work or something? Okay. The work ethic, there's nothing wrong with the work ethic. I think it's fantastic, and we see in our culture, we get a lot of complaints of, today's generation, no work ethic, you hear that all the time. So there's definitely something to be said for a good work ethic, and to work hard, put in those hours, not to shy away from, giving it an extra 110%. And many of us value being productive, accomplishing things. We learn very early on to be task-oriented. I think sometimes that can go to an extreme also. It's almost like we can't value ourselves, or we can't sit still unless we're accomplishing something. How many of you have trouble sitting still? Let's put it that way. Boy, a lot of people. Even the camera person. You just have this need. You always got to be doing something, what'd you say?
Said turn on the TV and I'm out.
Turn on the TV and you're out. You don't watch much TV, huh?
He pretends he does. You
pretend that you watch TV. You'd rather be working, doing something, accomplishing something. Yeah. Again, that's a wonderful thing. There would be more people out there that get the job done and what have you. But there is a downside to this. Another aspect, the personality traits that lead us into more work for ourselves. How many like to please people? Raise your hand. How many people pleasers are there? People pleasers tend to work harder than all the rest, right? There are givers and then there are takers, right? And the givers actually work very, very hard. Again, that's a great quality, to be pleasing and to be nice to other people, be good to other people. But there is a downside here. Another thing is perfectionism. How many of you are perfectionists? Raise your hand. That's another way of doing yourself in, Actually, oftentimes perfectionists are not very productive because they're so busy trying to get it right that they don't quite get the job done at all. But perfectionists tend to be very busy. Also, I think for many of us, there's a real need to be tough, strong, in control. in our lives. Not to show weakness, not to be vulnerable, and when you're in that kind of position, then it's more about what I can do for you, and getting the job done, getting work done, rather than I need something. Maybe like you need a break, for example. So let's talk about the importance of healthy balance in life. It's been said that mental health is all about balance. It's when things go out of balance that you run into some problems. And that could be about anything. If you're too much of this, too much of that, it can create a problem. You've heard that phrase, all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. I don't know if you heard of that. But anyway, when we think about it, when we start out, we're just all child, right? Like when you're an infant, what's an infant like? All an infant is interested in is me, right? Talk about me first, right?
Yeah.
Infants can dominate. It's all about my own needs. That's the way we start out. It's all about me. The other thing that's one of the, we start out all child, and the other qualities about being a child are being playful, loving to play. There's a natural instinct on the part of children to play. Many times, you may have noticed that they rather play with their food than eat it. There's something to be learned from kids, right? And also humor and laughter. It's just a natural thing. If children are raised in a healthy environment, that is. But sometimes children don't have the types of environments that they need, and sometimes, unfortunately, there's cases where there's abuse, verbal or physical abuse, and then it's hard for a child, to allow these qualities to come forth. But for the most part, children are like that. And we start out all child, and then as we go along, there's a thing called socialization that occurs, where we need to become adults, which means that we need to be problem solvers, task-oriented, and then ultimately we need to incorporate like a parent inside of us, a control side to us, so that by the time we're adults, what's happened to that kid inside of us? Squashed. Who said that? That's right. Pretty much. We start out, think of it like a big ball of child. By the time we're adults and the older we get, it's like a little peanut. What happened to that child inside of there? And it's the child that's also, the child is about spontaneity, it's about feeling, it's about emotions, it's about all those things. Oftentimes when you're growing up, you'll hear, kids will hear the phrase, well, grow up. Why not? Why should we grow up? Look what you turned out to be, And, you're pretty dull right now. There's not a lot of incentive to grow up. So what does this all have to do with health? Well, it's everything to do with health, and it's about balance in life, and that if things get out of whack, where it's mostly work and just being an adult and keeping things in control and all of that, then we have needs inside that are just not being met, and there's an imbalance in that way. And so, what do you think then? If you're working most of the time, and you're looking for some sort of reward, some sort of stimulation, some sort of way of nurturing yourself, what do you reach for?
That refrigerator right when I come in the door.
There you go. That's right. Yeah. Because that's the most accessible reward there is. It's legal. It's easy. It's easy to have. It's a lot easier to eat than to have sex, right? So you can get it. It's everywhere. You can get it at any time that you want. It's accessible. It's an immediate reward. So if you're missing, those nurturing kinds of things that you need, that nurturing child inside, that spontaneous child, what have you, and all you're doing is working. That's the way that we kind of feed ourselves. But we see that, but I know that I'm sure you know there's a problem with that, isn't there? And so, you know, it's all about, it's about neglecting ourselves. That's what we end up doing. We neglect ourselves. We don't take care of ourselves in terms of balance. We end up not getting enough sleep. We end up not eating as often as we need to. Sometimes that's a problem. I take lots of eating histories, and I run into a lot of people that will hardly eat all day, and then they have a marathon in the evening. You know, when you need to be eating during the day, you need to have 3 meals plus snacks, and get that metabolism going, and eating the right kinds of foods, of course. You know, and exercise, we'll get into that also, and we need to have fun, and we need to also have relationships, right? So, you know, when you're in your deathbed, and I know you're going to say, you may have heard this from, said before, you know, you're going to be thinking about, gee, I wish I could have spent more time at work. It's doubtful. Although some of us might have, I don't know. And it's amazing, you know, I talked about perfectionism before and achievement. I particularly noticed it in people that have anorexia and bulimia, but I mean, it can occur with any of these eating disorders. I've often asked it in the eating disorder group, you know, would you rather get an A on that test or be healthy? And they typically routinely say they'd rather get the A, you know, than be healthy. You know, even if it kills them, you know. And it is killing them, because these are eating disorders. You know, we're talking about life and death, aren't we? You know, we're talking about your health. You know, these eating disorders can kill. Isn't that the main purpose? Not a healthy purpose, but the purpose of an eating disorder. The purpose of obesity is to eventually kill us. So I applaud all of you for being here, for doing something in your community that's going to fight this war against this monster, you know, this monster eating disorder, you know, that will ultimately want to kill you. And if it doesn't kill you literally, kill you physically, it'll kill your spirit. You know, you kill your quality of life. You know, so we had, you know, there are a lot of people out there. It's like Walking Dead, you know, out there that don't have a great life as it stands. So anyway, some of you have been were born to be caretakers, right? Especially especially the women, though it's not exclusively the women. I've worked with many men also that are inclined to always be taking care of other people. So how many of you played with dolls? Raise your hand. Feel free to join in, man. How many of you played mommy or house or that nature? You know, you're groomed from an early age, right? To be nurturing and to be caretaking, that's a wonderful thing. There ought to be more people in the world that care about other people, that take care of people. But again, we go back to in the process, you end up neglecting yourself. Born to please other people. And how many of you have said to yourself, it's better to give than to receive? Okay? You know? You know, it's a real Christian thing to do. You know, better to give than to receive. It may be the Christian thing to do, but it could also be quite unhealthy after a while. I'm talking about balance. Again, I'm not saying that you should all become selfish and just be interested in yourselves and that's it. I think just tipping the balance a little bit more in the direction of how about me? How about my needs? I often tell people that you know, if you treated yourself even 5% of the way you treat so many other people, you'd be in much better shape. You know, think about the way you treat some people in this life, the way you take care of them and nurture them, and imagine if you did those kinds of things for yourself. You know, how life would be different. You know, oftentimes nice guys finish last, don't they? Right? When you're just too nice. So it's time to step up and not be so nice, right? Okay. And I mean, you're this nice, what often happens? You often end up being exploited, taken advantage of. You're the go-to guy. And the more that you give, what happens?
More than take.
The more they take, that's right. This happens at every different level. You know, it happens in the work setting. You know, I will talk to my wife about this. She's an office manager, and she's a dumping ground. And she's a bit of a pleaser, and she works hard and all of that. And she's been working on this about herself for it's a lifetime project. You know, trying to, not always have that quick reflex. I'll do it. Go in there and help people and rescue and do because then you end up being a dumping ground. Then everybody just takes advantage. And the same thing can happen in personal relationships. It happens at every level. In marriages and family relations. Oftentimes there's this imbalance. You're never going to get the perfect balance, where 50-50, each person's giving and receiving, just the right amount. But some of us walk around with, it's almost stamped on our head, take advantage of me. I'm a nice person. And if you want to be healthy, you'll start to think about this, that this isn't such a healthy thing to be doing so much. So first of all, let me just hear from you, what I've said so far. Any comments so far? Any reactions?
I think also that for a female's point of view, especially, my kids have grown up, so I'm past that stage, but I think for a younger woman, that she also has to get past the thing of feeling guilty for asking her husband to take care of the children. Give me, like say, an hour. She has to go to him and say, give me an hour of time for me to do that. Whether it's soaking the tub or reading a book or get out and walking, because we feel so guilty that it's our responsibilities that you have to get to the point to say, look, I need help, and can you help me here? And let them have that hour to walk or to do. But we feel so guilty and bogged down. We think that we're in the wrong by asking for help.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, yeah, that's a great point. Anybody else feel guilty when you try to break out of that mode? Where does this guilt come from?
And personally, for me, I think part of it is just accepting responsibility. It's easy to get caught up, too busy, too much thing for your kids. I mean, putting yourself first, like you suggest.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's real easy. 8 o'clock at night, after she goes to bed, you just sit down on my little recliner chair and watch TV. And when this started, I told my husband at 8 o'clock she goes to bed. I go to the gym. That's the way it's going to be. And it's taking responsibility for the particular situation I'm in.
Right.
That's really, it's like after 6 years of not baby waking up. Let's face it.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with as busy as the day is. And, the only time I have down to do anything for myself is after 8 o'clock. And that's.
I agree with you. It's taking responsibility. You're absolutely right. But it's difficult, isn't it? When you have this guilt that you're talking about.
Because we're the caretakers.
That's
we're
right.
Take care of the family, the home, the cooking, most of it. Thank goodness my husband cooks as much as I do. But of course, I'm in a position now that I have grandchildren, so Granny has time to do my own thing now, but it's hard when you have small children. So.
Granny's got to take care of herself. She wants to play with small children.
And I am.
Well, it's tough when you feel like your whole identity's been tied up with this. It's a huge change to begin to even think about this and to break out of that mold. So much of your worth probably is tied up with that, and so I suspect there's a bit of people pleasing there too. It's like not wanting, somebody else to dislike you or to be offended or whatever.
Me and my husband, our biggest discussion was that, I'm watching my portions and trying to do really good, and he is an eater, and he'll bring him a plate or, dessert to me when I'm like, honey, I really don't want that. It's like, I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I don't want to sneak for the dessert. That's the point I'm glad everybody else did.
I love the enablers.
You all hear what she said? She loves enablers. Not really. She was being sarcastic, right? Yeah, well, that was another part of my discussion today, was talking about how people around you can make you fat. Relationships, that kind of sabotage, can certainly get in the way. As well as, food equals love. It's like, if you don't take this food, then you're rejecting me, my feelings will be hurt and all of that. But think about it, this person is killing you. This kind of love you don't need. So, but I'm glad you brought up guilt, because guilt can be a good thing in some areas of our lives, but in this particular case. And it's very difficult to make a change, isn't it? When you're used to being, it's like you've been programmed all your life, and like, it's just very difficult. It's like going from, if you've never driven a stick shift before, trying to learn how to drive a stick shift. You're so used to automatic. It's just not natural, does it? It doesn't feel natural. But taking baby steps and having little victories is the way to go. Being able to take a stand, in a small way, and just building up, from there. It's not going to happen overnight. And coming to groups like this and getting support, for doing those sorts of things. Any other comments? How about this side here? I've got to wait down here. Any comments? Did any of you identify with any of this stuff so far? You're nodding your head. Does that mean you identify with it?
Yeah, I can identify with a lot of things you said.
What in particular stands out for you?
Well, the guilt, as far as I know, not too long ago, I took care of my mother and my father, and I felt like I was the only one. I didn't want to ask for help. And if it hadn't been for the Alzheimer's center, I don't know what I would have done. But it's hard to have that to think of yourself when so much of the time is taken up with caring, and you want to do it, but yet it's so difficult.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I see this time and time again. I cannot tell you in the histories that I take how often I hear about a person that's taking care of their elderly mother, elderly father, or some relative, who's become disabled with, either physical, or cognitive, kinds of disorders. And I see it time and again, and it is incredibly draining, isn't it? I mean, it's just totally depleting. Especially if you already have you're trying to, if you're still working, and you have a full-time job, and then you come home, and that's all you're doing is caretaking.
Luckily, I have retired, but I think my personality, it wouldn't have mattered what I had done. I would have felt guilty because I felt like I hadn't done enough.
Yeah.
And my family assured me that I did, and the doctors, but still I felt like I could have done more for them.
Yeah.
And you get wrapped up in that.
Yeah, and then relatives and other people are more than willing to oblige if you're going in there all the time. And what about this, not being able to ask for help? How many of you here have trouble asking for help? There's a lot of people here that have trouble asking for help. I have trouble asking for directions when I'm driving a car. My wife gets on me. No.
That's amazing.
But anyway, I'm talking about other things too. Life could be a lot simpler, couldn't it? If we just ask for some help once in a while. What is a stoic thing? The thing that we have to be strong, tough, in control, and take care of it all ourselves. Is that really necessary? Because unfortunately, that way of being will kill us, won't it? It's very unhealthy, isn't it? I'm in a business where people come to me, with asking for help, for mental health, for counseling, and all of that.
Stress is one of my problems. Even every time I get something go off course,
When things go off course.
anything go off course, whether it's the children, the work, or a broken car, whatever little thing.
Now, are you talking about
like
You're talking about life. I mean, are you saying?
I'm being honest.
Are you saying that your lifestyle kind of throws you off course of your diet or eating, or are you also talking about stress eating?
I'm talking about stress eating.
Stress eating.
Anytime when something goes wrong, I seek food for the duration of it.
That's right. How many of you stress eat? Yeah. Just, I very rarely come across anybody that doesn't stress eat. A lot of people are not even aware of the extent to which they eat out of stress. You're very much aware of it, yes. And what do you think produces stress in your life?
Life.
Life. I don't.
Children, work, family, responsibility.
Exactly. Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, life is stress to an extent. I'm talking about excessive amount of stress. You know, is when you're feeling overwhelmed, right? Or when.
No, it just could be like if I went to start my car and it didn't start. That's a motive. Gee, I can't fix the car. I'm no mechanic.
Okay.
I can go calm my nerves. Calm and quick.
But why do you think that little thing will get? It may not be such a little thing, you know, not being able to stop. Why do you think you're saying like little things can get to you? Why do you think little things get to you?
Habit.
I would suspect that it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. I think we reach a point of burnout. You know that it becomes it's much harder to tolerate any stress in our lives. You reach that point, like you're maxed out. You know, it's similar to a disorder, you know, known as post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, like when you've been through so much stress or so much trauma, any little thing it gets on, makes you jumpy or just can't take it. You know, and that's what life can do to us, and it can burn us out. We get burned out, and that's when we become very sensitive. It's like I cannot take any more of this. We become very vulnerable. It's not that act. I mean, if you felt good, if you had a well-balanced life, not being able to start the car would be no big deal. If you felt like your tank was filled, you know. You see what I'm saying? So those little things add up, don't they? It's the little things that make up life, aren't they? All together, when you don't notice them as each one little thing. You put them all together, and what have you got? you got a bomb. Yeah, which brings up another issue, anger. How many of you are angry? How many of you get pissed? How many of you get irritated? Because that's probably one of the most difficult emotions to deal with for people. It's interesting. I come from New York, and I've been living here in Kentucky for now longer than I've lived in New York, and it's interesting the cultural differences. I come from the Big Apple, New York City, and I came from a culture where people almost had to yell above each other to be able to hear each other. And it may seem like my family is aggressive at times, they're real outspoken at times. And my mother, very assertive woman, and get down here, and it's a different kind of a scene. What were you saying?
They don't get into a hurry.
That plus, what am I talking about here?
Southern women are not very assertive.
Southern women are not very assertive. There's another term that I'll use, passive aggressive. Passive aggressive. I noticed that they may not directly express their anger, irritation, but there are kind of sneaky ways of doing it. Like withholding sex, for example. Or whatever, yeah, go ahead.
I've also heard that as long as we're noted for as long as you say bless his heart, you can say anything about anybody.
You get away with it.
As long as people bless their heart.
Bless your heart. Yeah. The reason I bring up anger, because it's when we suppress our anger, we control it and try to hold it down. What? Then you eat, because that's stressful. That's stressful to hold that anger down. It is. You people should be angrier than crap. About how you've been exploited, how you've been taken advantage of. How people are dumping on you all the time.
Sometimes we just like to eat.
I know, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, right? Anyway, yeah, that's true, that's true. This is a complicated matter. There are a lot of things. I'm particularly focused on one aspect of this. You know, I'm looking at some of the emotional, psychological aspects of it. But you're right, sometimes we just like to eat. I mean, food equals pleasure, right? I mean, if food didn't taste good, would anybody be sitting here today?
And that's what I think most of weight loss is. They don't let you put anything on it you don't want to eat anymore. It tastes bad. Like, who wants a baked potato now?
Yeah. Now, if I told you I found something that would give you just as much pleasure as food, and didn't put on any more calories, would you like that?
It's a picture of a chocolate cake.
A picture of a chocolate cake doesn't quite do that. Doesn't quite do the same thing. But pleasure, we are, as human beings, we are pleasure-seeking creatures. It's really not a lot different than the animal kingdom. We seek pleasure and we seek to avoid pain and discomfort at every turn. And when we experience pleasure, what do we want to do?
Celebrate. Eat.
We don't want, we don't want it to stop, right? We don't want it to stop. And this is the principle of addiction. Why people become alcoholics or become drug addicted is because they don't want the pleasure to stop. Oh, I found something good. This is wonderful. This is a great, it's an escape, it's a reward, it's stimulation. Keep it coming, keep it coming. You know, the funny thing is that after a while, it's not so pleasurable anymore. It's not as pleasurable as it used to be. After a while, you're putting it down, you don't even notice the taste half the time, you know. And,
Hershey Kiss will always taste.
that long, except for Hershey Kisses, right? And why are we attracted to chocolate? You know, why is that such an attraction? Well, and that's not for everybody. Everybody has their own types of foods that they like. Why do a lot of people like chocolate?
It's a neuron, and it has to affect the brain.
That's part of it, yeah. But I also think it's a way of being sweet on yourself, right? It's a way of nurturing yourself. I mean, Cracker Barrel has it right. It's all about comfort food, right? They know how to sell food to people. You know, make it a comfortable setting. It's all about pleasure, right? And unfortunately, that's gotten into our heads, so much so that we lost sight of what's down here, you know, from the neck down. We don't pay attention so much. You know, our body might be saying to us, "Hey, I'm full. I had enough. That's all my body needs." But the brain is saying, and the tongue is saying something else, right? And this has a lot to do, again, with balance in life. If you're truly nurturing yourself, if you're finding pleasure in a lot of different ways and a lot of different sources, if you value relationships and you have good relationships, you have fun with people, good laughs, and you're into activities and hobbies and interests and all that, you have a well-balanced life, and you set limits where you're not working so hard, you actually have downtime to think, maybe to take a bubble bath or have a massage or something like that, then there's not as much need for this craving. You know?
I think if you can get rid of the takers, will you feel better?
Get rid of the takers. Just eliminate them from the earth. This is like a rebellion. Well, I don't know you want to go that far. I think just standing up to the takers.
So why is it psychologically that, I mean, we all know the first bite always tastes the best, and you get down to the last bite, it's never as good as the beginning. So why do we not stop at the second and the third bite?
Good question. Anybody have any ideas?
I mean, we're just not happy until the plate's empty.
That's it.
Have
We're
it
still
trained.
working to finish our
Feeling,
plate.
habit, and training.
Yeah, we were taught, between our plates.
That's part of it, yeah, yeah.
I paid for it, I'm eating all of it.
That doesn't work well
Yeah,
with
but-
the Golden Corral, though.
Which garbage pail do you want to put it into? That one over there or this one?
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to learn.
So you all belong to the Clean Your Plate Club here?
My mom told me when me and my siblings would cry, she always stuffed our mouths with food. She has a picture of three, you're talking about children, of 3 butterball children. And my brother, like you, were blessed to have these metabolism that they were able to work it off.
Right.
But I'm still on that same level. Well,
Yeah,
I cry,
yeah.
I eat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but she said she did that really well. She said she didn't have no noisy children. Just stuff.
She's dying. I think that they style too, because like I was raised on a farm and we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you ate and you went and worked.
Right.
You know, and you was always busy. You was hoeing tobacco. You was
Right.
digging the potatoes. You were doing something constantly to work it off, and you didn't go in the kitchen and constantly ate. You ate dinner, and once supper was done, it was done. You didn't go back in the dirty mama's
And you got
kitchen.
up.
And now grandma's kitchen refrigerators are 24/7 open door. You know, just somebody's always in.
I have the hardest time, my daughter's 6 and a half, I have the hardest time, my mother thinks I'm crazy because I won't let her give her any sweets. And it's not, I don't want you to give her sweets. The problem is, we go to the bank, anybody, you know, we go by any store or anything, they're giving out suckers and, you know, everybody's passing out. The problem is, it's not the one sucker. It's the fact that during the entire day, she managed to get 3 or 4 pieces of candy just by existing in this world of ours. I had to
set up for that.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's set up for that. I mean, you can go to the store today and the chocolate is laid out for you to
That's
all.
Get me.
If someone else don't buy it, at least buy yourself a pack, right?
So how much time, how much energy do you put into thinking about food?
A lot.
How much time, how much energy do you put into thinking about losing weight?
A lot.
So you put that all together. How much time are you spending in your life thinking about or putting energy into either, you know, something related to food and weight and all? It's consuming, isn't it? And that's what's called an eating disorder, when you're just so wrapped up in that it robs you of living. You know, how much can you really enjoy life if that's what your world revolves around? You know, so the idea here is to step out of that a little bit, try to step out of that whole mishmash. And there are other things to think about, right? Besides food and losing weight. What do you need to think about?
how much if you watch TV at night, every single.
Thank
Here we go.
I know, it's tough. It's tough with the media and with our culture around every turn. You know, that's what people do to socialize. I mean,
And our families that are not having no these problems,
Right.
you know, like you said, the enablers, they're there, whether it's friends or family or coworkers. It's all around. You
Right.
get up and it's people at home, you go to work and there's people there. And they don't mean no harm, not really. I
Yeah.
don't think they're sabotage.
any of you have an activity that you do that doesn't involve food? Can you think of an activity that doesn't involve food?
Most times I go to church, so.
So most times when you go to church, okay, that's nice. Then you can actually go to. What's any other activities that people engage in that don't involve food?
Concert.
The gym,
No, there's always popcorn.
concert.
Well, but then you got people eating all around.
Yes.
Somebody's got pizza, somebody's got popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is much harder than being an alcoholic or drug addict, because this food, you have to eat. You know, I realize that, and you have to learn to live with it. Somehow it's tough. It's very tough. It'd be a heck of a lot easier to just. It's easy. It's easier to quit smoking, right? It's easier to quit something that you don't need, but you need food. So how do you live with that in a comfortable way? And I'm saying that balance. It's so much about balance. Finding other pleasures, taking care of yourself, that will help this process. Where your world isn't just about food and eating and dieting and all of that. Food, it can be like a drug, right? It can be.
You can't get away from it. You look at the TV and they're always.
That's right. That's right.
Food, food.
That's right.
The other commercial.
Every
Sometimes 3 in a row.
And I get to see a hamburger and a rabbit that looks like that commercial.
So even after.
Let's also talk about relationships. I started to talk about that, earlier. Like I said before, that from an early age, we're taught that food equals love. I think what my mother told me she did with me, and maybe why I was 31 pounds, is like every time I cried, she stuffed a bottle in my mouth. Food equals love. And we see that at the adult level also, you know. I'm sure many of you have seen where, you know, people's feelings are hurt. If you don't eat this meal I cooked for you, or if you don't eat this, you know, go ahead and have this treat or whatever. And so that's certainly another way that people, you know, the relationships, the people around you can make you fat. And then the sabotaging, you know, how do you live in a household where your partner can eat anything they want and stay slim and doesn't mind bringing it all in, and loves to eat out. How many of you love to eat out? You know, at the restaurants, especially, and partners. You know, people. That's the social thing to do. So what do we do about that? How do you
Plan ahead.
plan ahead? What do you mean?
Well, sort of have your mindset to what you're gonna, we eat out a lot. You know, wherever Applebee's, you name it, we go there. We'll drive to Lexington just to eat and go back home. But, so if I know what restaurant I'm going to, I get in my mind what would be healthy, what I can have, and have it set before I get there. And
So
when I get
planning
there
ahead.
already,
Okay.
start planning.
Yeah. Any other ideas? What else we can do?
No willpower.
What's that?
Plenty of ideas, no willpower.
Plenty of ideas, no willpower.
Like drinking water between bites. I try to do that because that
Mhm.
helps
Right.
keep me from overeating.
Mhm.
But then I get to eat it before I know it, the water's still sitting there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't actually took the time to do that, or actually putting the fork down between bites. I'm so used to holding it, you know, I have the knowledge, but
Because you're in a hurry.
because we're used to that too. You get 15 minutes for break or 20 minutes for lunch and you want to get the food in. That's another training that has been a process of get the food, eat it, get back to work.
I think this group, I mean, this is another example of something that can help. You know, support. We all need support, right? We need encouragement, and it helps. There's more strength in numbers, you know. So I don't know if any of you do this, but you exchange numbers, for example, and you have, you know, if you're having a tough time, you know, it's like a co-sponsor, you know, with alcoholics. You know, you can call somebody up if you're having a rough time, you know, maybe through. You know, it's something I'd encourage you to do. You know, is you know, even when you're not in these groups, to find people that where you can support one another. That might help also. How about the value of rest? How important is rest? How important is sleep? How many of you get at least 8 hours of sleep a night? How many of you get 7 hours or less? How about 6 hours or less? 5 hours or less? 4 hours or less? 3 hours or less? Anyway, and what's the problem with not getting sleep?
Interrupted sleep. I have to wake up for that call.
Yeah, you can get, right, that's true also. You know, you can get sleep. If it's interrupted, if it's not restful sleep, that's another problem. What's the problem with not getting restful sleep? In terms of,
Tired, poor judgment, you're hungry.
yeah, when we're low in energy, what are we seeking? You know, so getting adequate sleep gives us energy, and you know, maybe we won't. That'll help with the eating part of it. If you get enough sleep, what else can you do? You know, instead of blobbing out, maybe you have enough energy to exercise. Which brings me to that topic, exercise, right? That'll help you sleep, right? Sleep will help you do exercise, exercise will help you sleep, right? Yeah.
Is there a wrong time to exercise?
Is there a wrong time to exercise?
Before you go to bed, just, you know,
Well,
exercise. I've heard different things from different people, you know.
I think whatever, you know, I'm not sure about that. I mean, it's, you know, you can certainly get you all stimulated and right before bed. You know, you may not want to do it right before bed, but It can be done in the evening though, and then you kind of wind down. But you know, how important is exercise in all of this?
Very high.
And it's not just about calories, you know, burning up calories. Well, that's certainly part of it. But, it's also about getting fit and just feeling good and building confidence. You know, it feels good. It just feels good. And it's also a great stress. It has the potential of being a stress reliever. You know, also. Yeah. So what do you think so far? What's that? Are you doomed? Feeling helpless, hopeless?
I think what that lady said a while ago about planning, I think that's a lot of it. You have to plan when you're going to be able to exercise. And you have to plan what you're going to have for lunch and what you're going to have for supper so that you're not going to Wendy's to grab the chili and burger.
Right. Yeah, and planning takes work. And I talked earlier about how your lives are just so full of work. So that makes it difficult, doesn't it?
Yes.
When this is another job that you have. But it's probably the most important job that you have. There's no way around this. This does take work. It takes a lot of work. The easy thing to do is just let things be. Don't change a thing.
Do your heart surgery.
Till your heart surgery, right. Yeah, but you're right. It takes work, and work with planning, you know, to planning ahead. You know, I've met with people, well, you know, certain jobs are not conducive, you know, to healthy eating, right?
No, we're not.
You know, for example, you know, truck drivers. You know, I've worked with a number of truck drivers. Or what other jobs are not conducive?
Sales.
Sales?
Yeah, I'm on the phone all day, and they will pay for your lunch through the work through, but then the lunch they provide for you is the most unnutritional lunch possible. You're supposed to be able to eat it and talk at the same time.
Now in the, I've seen over 6,000 people doing bariatric screenings, and what would you say is the number one profession I see more than any other? There's one profession that I see more than any other. What? Nurses. The number two profession is what? Teachers. Nurses and teachers. Do we have any nurses or teachers here?
Married.
Giving, exactly. And so often I hear from nurses, you know, there's no time, teachers. You know, they just give us 10 minutes to eat. You know, it's just like there's no time in the day. And nurses too, you know, with their shifts and everything. So some of these jobs, it's very challenging, isn't it?
My husband, he works a 12-hour shift as a nurse, and he eats all night long because they never relieve him from lunch, and they work through it. So then he's eating, you know, when he is home because he's making up for the time. I hope he won't have a heart attack or stroke, but you know, he's got to get it done.
But there's no doubt that there are obstacles to this. You know, you can talk about the TV shows food commercials, there's restaurants around every corner, my job keeps me from doing it. So I like what you said earlier about taking responsibility. That's what it really does boil down to. And if it's all black and white thinking, it's not going to work. If you think, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when it comes to the TV commercials, I found it helpful to stop watching them. Like if you have a magazine or something and you just don't look at the images, it's not quite as tempting.
I think TiVo's one of the greatest inventions.
Just zip through the commercials, right? Yeah.
That's like.
Hit the mute button, right? Right. Yeah.
Stand up and walk at the chair where we're at while the commercials on. Do a little march.
Wouldn't it be great if there's some sort of app that came up with anytime there's a food commercial, it just zaps it.
Yes. Something my husband, he's one of my enablers, but he's actually gotten on board with this, and he's been really good at this, because he does most of our meals, because if we wait for meals for me at my house, we can be eating midnight. And that basically is that when he makes our dinners, he's making healthy meals, but he only puts one serving on the table. On the table, that's all that's up there. There's no extra pork sitting there, there's no extra potatoes. It's like whatever the serving size is, that's what it is. And he stresses it away. And that seems to
really.
That's nice.
And that's really helped because, you know, even though those mashed potatoes were really good after I had, I really don't need anymore.
And then that's a nice supportive,
Get another-
that's a supportive, loving thing to do, that he's working with you. That's great.
so.
Yeah. I see where, you go ahead.
Okay, so you know about tempting and stuff, like food commercials?
Yeah.
Does that mean I should stop watching the Food Network's channel?
Makes her hungry.
I'm hungry recipes on there.
Yeah.
Now, there's a limit to how many recipes you can actually physically
Well, but you can actually do the recipe if you use portions, if you're measuring it out and you're counting the calories.
You may want to try watching something else.
You can actually have
You can watch
Anyway, we're about out of time, almost out of time. I need to stop, but I think it really boils down to, you know, learning to love yourself is what it really boils down to. It boils down to self-esteem. You know, how much do you really love yourself? And because if you truly love yourself, then you treat yourself in a loving way with good nutrition, with exercise, with play, with downtime, with you know, nurturing yourself, with good relationships. If you truly love yourself, if you really care about yourself. And I think that's at the crux of a lot of this, is, you know, how much do you really care about yourself? And hopefully, you know, as you go through this journey, that you'll learn to care about and love yourself more and more and more. Thank you for having me, and good luck to all of you.
Thank you.